Thank you for buying into our Spring Wreath kits. I know there's a couple of you already who did the Christmas wreath kit, so you want to have a go at the spring one, which is great. But this will still hopefully help you because the materials are totally different. Still a really fun activity to be having a little go at and something for you to enjoy, you know, to celebrate spring. Now, in your kit, you have got a moss ring that I've already done for you. It should be fairly damp and you want to keep it damp for the whole time that you've got your wreath up. You've got some bind wire, which is kind of your best mate, you know, your best tool for creating all of this. You've got some twine for you to hang your wreath upon your door at a later stage. You've got some jute ribbon, some nice rustic ribbon, which I thought would go really well with your spring wreath and what I've been using for those that I've been making for people. And you have a ton of different foliage and flowers and things like that to use. There's so much gorgeous stuff that even though I've given you lots of materials, if you go on a walk, have a little forage, get some lovely stuff that you notice, you know, when you're walking about. So there's some gorgeous catkins on shrubs and trees at the moment that even if you just take small amounts of them, anything that takes your fancy can get added into this. Okay, the first thing that you're going to do is attach your bind wire to the main frame. So you simply finding the metal that's hidden underneath the moss, and you're going to attach that in. It doesn't need to be knotted, you just need to wind it around 2 or 3 times, and because it's such tough stuff, okay, it holds on really well, and I tend to wrap it round 2 or 3 times just to secure it and pull it taut, okay, and then leave it. That's all you need to do for now. The next thing you're going to create is a load of little bunches combining all of the lovely floral ingredients that I've given you. Okay, phase 1. Okay, so you're going to make a load of little bunches with all of the different materials that you've got, all the fresh materials. This is very much down to taste. I like a really wild look. And especially because there's so much beautiful stuff to hand at spring. There's so much to choose from, so many different shades of green on its own, lots of blossomy stems, that pick and choose what you like best out of the materials that I've given you, and maybe supplement it with anything additional as well. Now, when you're making little bunches, and this particularly if you've not made a wreath before, you want to make sure, so I've kind of laid mine on top, you want to make sure that the bottom of all of your stems are exactly the same length. And the reason being that when we attach it to the moss base, it all meets the moss so that it can get hydrated, it can get its moisture. The only way it's going to get its moisture is from the moss itself. So you want to make sure that that touches the moss, and you need to have it all at the same length, you know, in order to do that. So you gather your little bunch, and a little bit differently, for those of you who've done the Christmas wreaths before, we would make all the bunches and tie them all up first. Because the materials are much more delicate with the spring wreath, I think it's easier to create your bunch and then attach it straight away to your wreath base. So this is the first one that I'm going to add in. Again, I'm making sure that they're all buried into the moss, and then simply take your bind wire and wrap it round, pull it taut twice, okay, and that's nice and secure. That's not going to go anywhere. Now, because we've got wire here and bare stems, you want to make sure that your next bunch is going to overlap that bit of wire so that you don't see it, okay. So again, I'm going to gather slightly different mix of materials. Love this variegated pittosporum that we've got here, really lifts, you know, compared to like the Christmas ones, it really lifts the whole of the arrangement because of the lovely light texture to it. And I'm going to have some of the scabious, okay, just one little bit of scabious, maybe a piece of the pussy willow. Okay, both of those dry beautifully, so they will go on, you know, much longer than anything else that you add in. And again, we're going to overlap so that we're not covering completely the foliage that went before. And we're going to take it, wrap it round tightly twice. Okay, make sure that it's all meeting the moss, because again, that's where it's going to get its hydration. And there you go. And you're going to do that all the way around. Now, because I've got a lot of green here, the next thing I'm going to do is maybe add a little bit of colour. So that's where I can put maybe the yellow in of the forsythia, which you've all got some of, and it'll obviously all open up as we go. You've got some craspedia. This is something that dries absolutely fantastically. And you've also got, which I've not got to hand here, I'll get some in a moment, some lovely lilac crocus. So that can lift it as well. You might decide not to use that and add some of your own. But yeah, have a little bit of variation as you're going around, and that can happen even just with foliage. If you want a really, really wild look, simply stems and greenery will still look really spring-like. Okay, so working all the way around, building your bunches as you go, overlapping so that you're covering those bare stems and the metal wire here. And then when you've got close to the end, that's where you stop, and we'll move on to phase 3. Okay, so you should now be at a stage where the whole of your wreath is covered in your foliage, your flowers and whatnot. And I've added in some freesia, you've got scabious here, craspedia, this lovely forsythia, which will come into blossom. I've also added some skimmia from the garden. I've got some heather in there as well. So there's lots and lots of different things in there, but predominantly it's a mix of foliage, lots and lots of green in different shades, which even on its own looks gorgeous. Now, if you've been tying them in as you go, you're at a stage now where you need to tie that off or bind it off. So what I do is I've purposely left a gap here, which is where I'm going to put my bow. You can fill yours completely and choose not to have a bow, that's entirely up to you. But this is a natural spot. So once you get to that stage, you want to wrap your bind wire maybe about 3 times. Okay, leave it a little bit of length on it. Okay, snip it off. Oops. I can get it. And then, as you did at the beginning, you want to find a little bit of the base metal inside the moss, and literally just thread this as if you were threading a needle, and go through a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times. And all you're doing here is securing everything that you've just fastened. Again, you don't need a knot. The bind wire is so tough that it holds everything really well anyway. Trim it off, and then you simply push that bit that you've cut in into the moss so that there's no sharp edges. It's not going to scratch your door, it's not going to scratch you or anybody else, you know, if you were to catch it, and that's it. Okay, now that's my finished wreath, where as you can see I've got a little gap here, so I'm going to use I've got a little ribbon, here's one I made earlier, but you've got your piece of jute or hessian. You simply create your own bow first, okay, so you do that as big or as small as you want, and once you've got your bow shape and you're happy with it, taking your bind wire again, cut a length that is long enough that it's going to go around your base, thread through the loop that you've created at the back. I tend to kind of twist it back on itself just to give it a little bit more strength. Place it on the spot that I want it to have, and twist again behind at the back, so I go around a good few times, cut it again, and as you did just a minute ago, you thread that wire so there's no sharp edges back into your moss. Okay, and play with that a little bit. Okay, so So that is my finished design. The only thing I've got left to do is add my twine to hang it on the door. Some of you might have wreath holders, or you've got, you know, nails in your door or whatever already, so you might not need this. But this is kind of quite a nice, safe way really to hang your wreath. It's more than strong enough when it's doubled up to hold it, and it means that you can hook it over your door if needs be and attach it, you know, from the inside. So you find a central point going underneath the foliage so that you don't see it. Okay, feed through the loop that's created at the back, and I literally kind of pull it through. So you've got the knot nice and tight at the back here, because then it will fall flat against your door. Knot it through. Okay, double knot it if you bothered, but it's strong enough anyway. And there you have it. Okay, your finished wreath. The only other thing to say now, I mentioned at the beginning that because the materials are much more delicate with a spring wreath rather than all the evergreen materials we use for the Christmas ones, is I would mist it daily. So you can mist the front, you can mist the back of it, and just to kind of keep everything hydrated for a little bit longer. If you put in any of the fresh stems that either I've given you or that you foraged and added yourself, they're probably going to be the things that wilt first. So you can pull those out and then just add in, you know, fresh stems, whether it be daffs, whether it be crocus, iris, any other lovely spring blooms that you've got around. But that's it. I hope you have lots of fun making your spring wreath. If you have any questions, message me. But otherwise, enjoy, and here's, you know, for lots of sunshine to come, I hope. Okay.